Rizzo and Jeff. One's older and wiser. The other, his life is falling to pieces. We're not sure how well we thought this through. Radio 95.1.
It is Rizzo and Jeff, Radio 95.1, and we've mentioned this since the start of the show. First off, weather not as bad as originally anticipated, Jeff. I think we got Hetsko a little bit.
Yeah, well, for people a little further out east, it's not going to be as good. But for us in this area, it kind of feels like we're escaping it a little bit, which is a good thing. It's been quite a lucky winter for us. So
now, Jeff, there is I think it's like almost 5,000-mile blob. Is that right? A blob of seaweed?
Yeah, that's what they're calling it. Basically, I'm sure that there's another term for it that maybe a intelligent doctor professor would be able to lay out other than blob, but it's in the news. You could even Google it. It's like you said, it's believed to measure about 5,000 miles across. It could weigh about 6 million tons. It's visible from space, and it's making its way to the East Coast.
Now, for those of you listening earlier, I did the professional thing, and I figured out how to do it, and I would like to welcome Dr. Chineman Hu, a professor of optical oceanography. I got that right, Doctor?
Yes, you got it right.
Wonderful. I appreciate that. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's talk about it. There's a blob, seaweed, 5,000 miles about long. What's the deal with this? What's the big deal? Why should we be talking about this?
Well, first, let me clarify. We should not call this a blob. It's actually a belt, a long belt extending from West Africa to Gulf of Mexico, 5,000 miles long and 300 miles wide. It's a belt. It's not a blob.
All right. Yeah.
And so it's better to call it a belt, a sargassum belt.
Yeah, well, you read some of the articles about it, and I guess people are just writing it and calling it in the blob. But, I mean, that's a lot of seaweed. So how does that all come together? And then, how long till it makes its way here?
Well, seaweed, in this particular case, the sargassum seaweed, is abundant in the Atlantic Ocean all year round, here and there.
Right.
And in the past few years, they tend to aggregate in the tropical Atlantic Ocean and grow very fast. And still, they have an annual cycle. They peak in the summer months, June, July, and they reach the minimum in winter months. So what is unusual this year is back in January, the amount is already large.
So we're speaking just for people tuning in with Dr. Chineman Hu, a professor of optical oceanography, about this, what we were calling a seaweed blob, but it's about a 5,000-mile long thing. So what can seaweed in that amount do? I mean, the articles that I've read about it, they're making it seem like it's a doomsday thing, like it could kill stuff, it could hurt animals, it could, you know what I mean? Like we have killer seaweed, Doctor Who?
No, absolutely not. It's quite the opposite. It is a habitat for animals. Animals like the seaweed. Okay? Yeah. Fish, turtle, shrimp, crab, they tend to get together, get around the seaweed. So this is a moving habitat for these animals. Also, I want to clarify, within that huge belt, seaweed does not cover the ocean surface completely. So only 0.1% of the ocean is covered by this seaweed. It's very tiny. But there are just too many nets, windrows, rafts, clams, that we see them from space.
So why is it making news? I mean, why is this? Because the way that I have been told and what I've been reading, and maybe it's hyperbole, Doctor Who, is that it's like, oh, this is killer seaweed, it's dangerous.
Well, especially down there for Tampa, say, is this going to roll up on St. Pete Beach, and is it going to wind up being like an issue. If I'm hanging out in Clearwater and I'm trying to have a good time, is this seaweed going to come up? Is it going to smell? Is it things of that nature that are concerning, like a deterrent to tourism?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
According to our past experience, and also nature doesn't work that way. Regardless of how much seaweed the east coast of Florida will receive this summer, the west coast would be spared. So no worry. Even for the east coast, the amount is way, way smaller than what's in the tropical Atlantic Ocean. Only a tiny little bit of that seaweed population in the tropical Atlantic will end up on the east coast of Florida.
So
even though...
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, doctor. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, what I was saying, doctor, is, we use a term up here. It's called bajagaloops, and that means we like to eat. Now, a lot of people are texting in some questions. A, can you use this seaweed to eat? A seaweed wrap, something like that. Do whales, can they eat it? I mean, can't this just be eaten? Like, why is this so big? Why is it just there? Why don't they just eat it?
Because they don't eat it.
Okay.
They don't like to eat the seaweed.
Okay, but is it edible like in human sushi? Is it that kind of seaweed?
I have seen one YouTube video to show how to make a seaweed or a sargassum salad. But I have not tried myself.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
So it may be eatable, but I haven't tried.
Okay, but it is a good thing because it does offer. It's like a safe harbor for fish and crabs and jellyfish and all kinds of different things, and it floats peacefully. So it is actually somewhat beneficial to things in the ocean.
It also absorbs carbon. Remember the carbon dioxide rise and the global warming.
Yes.
This seaweed absorbs carbon. So it will sink carbon to the ocean floor. So in that regard, it's also good. So only when you have a huge amount of seaweed decomposing on the beach, then they become very bad for animals, for people.
So it's not something that for the news do you think is making something more out of it than it is to kind of like, I don't know, to scare people a little bit?
I think they're exaggerating. So I wouldn't worry about the seaweed at all in Florida.
Okay.
It's absolutely not like a hurricane.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Not hurricane seaweed.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, not killer seaweed. No, absolutely not. It's harmful to some animals. Once you have too much in the nearshore water, they accumulate. But that's pretty rare, and that doesn't occur to every beach, even on the East Coast.
We are, if you're just tuning in, talking to Dr. Who. We're talking about, he's a professor at USF of optical oceanography. And thanks for taking a couple minutes. And it's just this seaweed, the belt, I guess, more than a blob, about 5,000 miles long. We're trying to figure it out. So then my question is, all right, it's there. I mean, is this something that we could, like you said, you've heard of like seaweed salad. I mean, other than eating it, what could we do with seaweed? Like if somebody, I don't know, gave you a bag of seaweed, what would you do with it?
The most usage, as I have seen it, is to make turn sargassum into fertilizer.
Oh, fertilizer. Okay.
Wow. So you could just take it and grow some.
Yeah, you wash off the salt and make it dry and chop into pieces and bury in your soil.
Wow.
Okay.
That serves as a fertilizer.
Right.
But on the other hand, I have also seen reports that the sargassum contains arsenic, which is a poison. But the concentration may not be alarming. But I'm not an expert in that regard.
Oh, so the arsenic, so if you want to take somebody out, you could just little seaweed and a milkshake there, and that lights out, huh, Dr. Who? We could do it that way.
Yeah. Well, the concentration may not be that high. Okay. It's a very tiny little amount. But
does all seaweed have arsenic in it, Dr. Who?
I cannot answer. I'm not, as I said, I'm not an expert on or trace metals.
Well, what does it? Because again, optical oceanography. Yes. I mean, what is an optical oceanographer? Because I would assume that seaweed is part of oceanography.
Yes, it's oceanography, but we use optics to study seaweed. We look at the color and relate the color to biomass, to how much seaweed we see.
Well, now, isn't seaweed green?
Some seaweeds are green.
What other what other kinds? I'm stunned. What kind of seaweeds we got here?
The kelp, the giant kelp in California, they are greenish. They're huge. They grow from the bottom, the shallow bottom. They can stick to the air. It's a giant kelp. But this sargassum seaweed is special. It's a pelagic. That means for its entire life cycle, it stays on the surface of water. If you sink, it must be dead.
Right.
There's the different types of seaweed. Some people call this a golden seaweed. It's yellowish. And others call it brown seaweed. It's brownish. But these are the only two colors they have.
Wow, that is a lot to learn to try to figure out, Doctor. Listen, that's way above our pay grade, that's for sure. So, look, I tell you that.
I mean, I'm just sitting here fascinated by seaweed. I appreciate it, Dr. Who, and thanks for taking a few minutes, okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. Enjoy that warm weather down there. We got the snow here, Dr. Who, okay?
All right. I try to enjoy the warm weather.
All right. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. I need a break.
Yeah. Well, look, here's the thing. We were misled by the media about this blob of seaweed.
We really came up flat.
I'm telling you. Listen,
I'm dying. Oh, my God.
Listen. You read the articles, you Google, you Bing, you look everything up you can about this blob. I'm literally looking at just like these
article
stories.
Ask Jeeves
friggin' about this seaweed. And then I get the professor on, and he tells me it's no seaweed. There's nothing in it. And he watches YouTube videos of people eating it.
He said he made some seaweed salad.
I'm looking at the New York Times.
I get you.
A giant blob of seaweed is heading to Florida.
We didn't make it up. And then he's talking about his seaweed
The
salad.
Great Atlantic Sargassum Belt is drifting towards the Gulf of Mexico. It's likely to come ashore by summer to create rotting, stinking scourge. That's what is in the New York Times.
And he said...
Who tells me no?
And who tells me no? All right? And here's the thing with who.
I don't know about this who.
I don't know who either, but I can tell you something about who. It was a very informative interview. He doesn't know seaweed as much as I wanted him to know
the seaweed, which can also cause pollution and threaten human health as it decays, has already begun to creep onto the shores of Key West and in Mexico in excessive levels.
Is Dr. Who in the know?
We recorded last month choking beaches south of Cancun with videos and all kinds of stuff of this horrific seaweed. But who comes on? Who comes on and he throws me for a loop?
Who just told me about golden seaweed? I didn't even know we had golden seaweed.
He's making stuff up.
I think Who was playing a little trick on us. Because, you might be an oceanographer, Who. All right, Doc? But,
he's not. What is he? Is that what he's called?
He said he's an optical oceanographer. But let me tell you about Chin Yang Hu, okay?
So what does he do? Optical oceanographer.
He said
you sit there with binoculars from the boat?
I said, well, isn't seaweed part of the ocean? He said, we look at seaweed. I said, okay, you look at seaweed. What color's seaweed? I think seaweed is seaweed. And then it turns out that he goes, we have golden seaweed. We have red seaweed, brown seaweed. There's so many seaweeds.
I've spent time around USF. They're not looking at seaweed.
Right. Doctor Who, listen, Radio 95.1, hello?
Hey, guys.
How are you, man?
I thought, hey, it's Big Mike. What's going on?
What's up, man?
Hey, listen, that was a weird interview, but, I thought they wrapped, sushi in, seaweed or something.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was getting at, and Doctor, I was fascinated, and I was trying not to laugh because I was just so interested in the seaweed.
Let me ask you: did who get us? I think who got us. I think that's what happened.
I thought who was on first and what's on second. I mean, I don't know who's going to have call, but the whole thing with the arsenic. You know, it's like I always thought my ex was trying to put decon in my oatmeal. You know, get rid of me. But I mean, if you want to get rid of someone, I can put some seaweed in their oatmeal.
That's what I'm thinking. So Doctor Who, Big Mike, said that there's arsenic in seaweed, but then he says he eats seaweed salad. But then he says all he does is look at seaweed in the binoculars. And then he said there's multicolored seaweed.
He was all over the place.
So he was all over. But what did we learn? Now, was it an entertaining interview? Perhaps. Did it make any sense?
No. I enjoyed it. I couldn't understand one thing about it, but
me neither, man. I didn't understand a thing either. That's the problem.
Well, Rizzo couldn't keep his eyes open.
I couldn't keep my eyes open. I'm trying over here.
The tears were coming out.
I was tearing up.
All right.
I appreciate it, Big Mike. We have to take a break. Okay. I would just like to thank Doctor Who, although I have to tell you, I think he's a lion.
Yeah.
Okay. Doctor Who is sitting there at the binoculars.
Oh, who's having a good chuckle right now.
Oh, we got hooed.
Yeah, we got hooed bad.
We got hooed.
We took it in the hoo-hoo.
We took it in the hoo-hoo.
He gave it to us good.
All right, listen, coming up, we're going to be talking about Pi Day. We only have a few minutes, but there's some things that are happening, especially in Henrietta. All right, you get the list. Especially in Henrietta. Radio 95.1, go ahead. Did we get hooed? Yeah. What's up?
Yeah, hey, as far as the arsenic, there's arsenic in a lot of things, such as apple seeds and apple juice.
But did you hear Doctor Who?
Yes. But like he said, it depends on the concentration. But there's lots of foods that we already eat that have arsenic in it.
But Doctor Who seemed to think that if he, like I said, what would you do if I gave you a big drum of seaweed? I guess if I gave him a drum, that might kill him.
Doctor Who was the typical doctor. Very dry and no sense of humor.
I tried with him, man. I tried to ask him about, different. I literally was asking him about colored seaweed. I
mean, you should have just said who's on first.
I should have. Hey, listen, man. Thank you so much for the call. Coming up, like I said, Pi Day, and I want to highlight some local establishments. I want to make Henrietta feel all the love that I have coming out of my body, and I want to say, Doctor Who. I think the audience is right. I think we got hooed. Jeff. You tried, and I appreciate your effort, but we got hooed, bro. I think he came on and made a fool of us, and we thought we were the ones.
I hate seaweed.
Me too.
I just do.
All right.